but I probably need to make this a little bigger, don't I? Who's E Barroso 7? Yay! Cool. Okay, so let's see. We had gotten to a point where we have a survey builder component that has a survey question or a list of survey questions in it. For some reason, the H1 here fell back to being a H1 instead of a survey title. That's probably something that I did. I think we had written the one here with the theme model, right? Just to put that back. Maybe? Did we do that? Yeah, but it's value, not total. No.
The property value.
You're right, the property value and I'm passing the title, and now this is probably not the right time to have done that. But what is the stupid thing about why is this not showing up? Refresh. Dang, well, it's too bad that I just started that instead of deciding not to care about it. Let's just decide not to care about it right now. I probably, oh, it's because I wasn't importing and wasn't doing the whole thing. But yeah, actually I can't do that right now. Cool. So, because remember, if you're going to use a component, you got to import it. You got to. Wow, this is really slow today. You see that lag on the typing?
Yeah. Maybe it's also taken inside the template rather than not inside the script.
Oh, well that's weird, because it's not doing that for me. Because Inbox is having a bad day, I guess. Yeah, that seems to be working. Are you caught up, Nathan? You might just try refreshing. Yes, they can. But that didn't help.
See, so now I'm looking at what's correct for you, but it's messed up.
That's super weird. Maybe
I'll
just refresh your whole page. Of course, I can't undo something that you just did, and all of the orders of everything are weird. Wow! Code Sandbox is having a bad day. Oh no. Import survey question from survey question. Insert title from survey title. Anyway, no idea what's going on Nathan's end, but that's why my computer's slow. My computer's slow because the battery is dying. The power strip isn't plugged in.
That would make a difference. I unplugged the wrong thing.
What is that the right thing to unplug?
In the middle of the whiteboard.
Oh yeah. That's a pretty weird place to unplug. Okay, so that's why it was so slow. Is my computer's like, I can't run JavaScript right now. My battery's dying. And you're also trying to like record and AirPlay. So okay, cool. So at this point we have a list of survey questions, but no ability to add any. So if we were to go in here and suppose we were just gonna make the questions start at blank, like, you know, you'd imagine you're starting a new thing, it should be blank. Now we don't have any way of adding questions, so maybe we should do that. Cool. Okay, so if we go back to, if we think back to when we had drawn out the way that this would look, right? We've got a new question form that goes beneath the list of questions. When you're not currently adding a question, there's a button that's new question. When you're writing a question, there's all the fields, and then down at the bottom a save button and a cancel button, right? And yeah, so let's suppose it should be called new question form. Makes sense to me. We can come back to what we want to do when a new question is saved. For now, we can just get that on screen. Import new question form from new question form. And register it that we're going to use it. Cool. So can't find the module because we haven't made one yet. So new file called new question form dot view. And in here we can do the old classic template and script with JavaScript, which what? I mean, I don't know. Let's see if we've got it on screen. Cool. So it's displayed. We did it. We got it on screen. What do we want here? We want an an alternation between a button that says new question, right? So a button, type button. It's like new question. And then the form, which we'll do stuff with later. But we don't want them both to be on the screen at the same time. Okay, we want to have the whether or not we're editing. Whether or not we're editing has been in every other one of these components a piece of local state, so let's do it like that. Let's say that data is a function that returns the initial state for the data, editing false. And then up here we can say if we are not editing. I don't know why I always want to do the not editing version first. Okay. Question. So if we are not adding a question, then we show the new question button, and else we show the form. Okay. Oh, hey, look at that! It's formatting my view templates now.
Because of that other thing.
I have actually no idea how it finally learned to format my view templates. It might be a Code Sandbox upgrade. But that means it's probably stuck at 80 characters wide, which is pretty wide, but it's okay, we can just shrink that guy. Let's see, so then, in the form, well no, so first we need to make the button mark, right?
Yep.
So we do a click handler right there, toggle adding. It seems like as good of a name as any for it. And that is a method. So methods has something in there called toggle adding, which is a function that says this dot adding question equals not this dot adding question. Cool. Of course, we have no way of leaving edit mode right now, but it seems
Something
good.
to do.
Something to do after we fill out this form. So what goes inside the form? We've got to have a bunch of different fields, right? So we could go in and just put in a bunch of inputs and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, but we can also think, haven't we already written something exactly like that? And the answer is that yes, we did. We wrote something exactly like that. All of these guys right here. Right? There's a label with an input for text and type and options. And it would be great if we could reuse that. If we just included a survey question object, that's got its own editing state. It's got its own how to display a question when it's not being edited. And then it's got all of these fields. So we can't just put a survey question right in there. But what we can do is we can extract a component from here that we can share with our new question form. So let's do that. Let's go down the path of extracting a component, which is one of those things that should become muscle memory at some point because of how frequently you'll do it. What should we call it? What do you want to call it, anybody?
I don't know.
Let's call it question fields. Seems right to me. It's got the number of the fields, but not the form, because the submission is handled above. So question fields.view, and we got ourselves a template, and we got ourselves a script. That's, oh, hey, scaffold does a thing. Don't want styles though. Cool. So there's a template for question fields. And if we go here and we just pull out all the stuff that we want, those are the fields. And the save changes behavior here is going to be different from the add question behavior in the new question form. So we want to leave that for the consumer of this subcomponent to use. I'm going to copy that stuff out and by copying the cut. And I'm going to put that in our question fields template. And of course, it's got to be inside of something. So we can use a div because we doesn't have template or doesn't have, what are they called? Fragments is what React calls them. But do that. Put it in the div. Oh, I love auto formatting. It's so wonderful when it auto formats. When I hit Command S, it does that. Cool. Okay. Well, so now we have that, but we probably are going to have a bunch of errors as soon as we put it back, primarily because of all of these local question kind of stuff. Right? The handle change type kinds of stuff is not something that we're handling yet inside of the question fields. Instead, that's something that we're handling inside of the survey question. Well, so let's just start by putting a question fields component right there. And of course, we got to then import it. Import question fields from question fields. And then components. Again, we're using curly braces here on the components guide because that is the new ES7 or whatever, ES6 shorthand for question fields colon question fields, and it's the way that we pass down the name of the variable and not just the variable. So we need the name so that we can reference it from the template up here, and then we've done that, and it reformats and probably should. Well, it's done something here. The add question, or yeah, there's the new question. Okay, so that's because I was in edit mode when it didn't show up. Let's put the sample questions back in so that we can make sure that our refactoring here doesn't actually break everything. Because right now it definitely should. That was weird. Can you see at that size?
Mm-hmm.
Good. So if we go into edit mode right here, it's probably going to break everything. Yep. It's not showing anything, and it's giving errors in the console about local question is undefined and all of that stuff, because we need to now pass down everything that the question fields will need as props. We'll also need to reinstate these input listeners, right? Yeah, so. So the question is, where do we do, so this is where that happened actually, Nathan. That's why I had been, I had been updating on every single button press instead of emitting right here, but that was a relic. We can deal with that. Question fields, let's pass down a question. Local question is what we're calling it here. So it would be nice to just listen for a change. I think we can probably do that. And then we'll basically have a mirroring local state in the question fields as well, but that's because of our waiting until you actually press save thing. Mm-hmm. Might not end up being complexity worth having in the survey question component, but we certainly want that for the question form component, so it's no problem. If we are passing down where did I go? Alright, so we're passing down bound question right there. We need to register it as props in the question field. So props are going to be question. Of course, we could put restrictions on the type of that yet, but we aren't going to right now. So handle change type, handle change option, handle change text, those we want in the question fields component. So let's pull all of those down. Okay, they all refer to a local question, and that's probably the right idea.
Looks like you really just change the name of the prop and keep everything else the same and then have to change it everywhere.
What?
No, okay, fine. I think that's the same.
Well, because, no, I mean, what I mean is we probably do actually need, oh, no, you mean,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, so let's just change all of that back to,
And that's select command D.
that was Command D, yeah, but okay, so if we do this, we're changing the props.
Okay.
Right.
We need a local copy again.
We need a local copy again, so that's what I was talking
That's what
about.
I was saying.
Yeah, so we do need a local copy. Data needs to be a function that returns the initial data, and local question should default to being this question, right? And that's because you can't change the props. So we're going to have a local copy. We're going to update that local copy, and then we're going to emit a change event every time somebody changes, right? And we had earlier looked at watchers for something like this, but I think they're crazy, and I don't like them anymore. So let's make a emit change or something method here. I don't know. You can call it whatever you want, but the idea is that it's going to emit a change event with the local question as the argument to that. And each of these handlers, we can just emit change afterwards. And that's really not so much more work. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I think it makes sense. Can't forget a trailing comma right there. And then in our survey question component, now we've got the ability to very simply say the, where did we go? Here we go. With our question fields, we can say on change, we do what?
This is the survey question.
The survey question component here, yeah.
So this one needs to look up to the survey builder.
Well, we're waiting until we hit save for the emission, right? In this, for now. So if we're doing this, then what we can do is we can just update the local question that exists on, oh, and I probably need to do that again, don't I? Okay, I'll copy and paste that, and we can go over again why that's necessary. We can just do, I mean, maybe that shouldn't be in line, but I'm a little bored with it. Local question. So I'm going to copy this down. When we're copying props to make a draft, like a local state version, remember that we have to spread out our objects again. It have to be something that will change the, that will actually make a new object and not just copy the reference. Right? The prop is passed down by reference when it's an object in JavaScript, and if we just reassign that to a local variable, it is a reference to the same object in here. Right? So spreading out like this is just in a shorthand of saying essentially object.new, or well, it's not .new, but new object, and then assigning every single one of the props, properties of that object to this one. Same thing with the array, because arrays are objects. Arrays are exactly objects in JavaScript. Cool. So that should allow us to return to edit mode, and it almost does. But the options are gone. Oh, do I need to refresh? That's weird. The options are gone because, oh, because the computed properties. So we're moving all around all of this stuff that has to do with questions. Seems like maybe there's something there. But anyway, we can put this here. Oh, shit. That may have broken everybody's live links. Is that something?
Fine,
Okay. Did something else not save when I did that? This all looks fine. Survey question is using one just like that. Looks fine. Let's.
Well, you can't totally delete as often because you're using it in your
I am using it in other places. Gee, this looks really very sad, isn't it? Now we've got to have some duplication all around. Now input type isn't necessary down here, is that right? But anyway, still. What do you think? It seems silly to have has options down there duplicated, right? We could pull
Why are we using it twice? Where is it being used twice?
whether or not to display this, and whether or not to put a single text area element or a list of options, right? And granted, it is only just this short little comparison, so it's maybe not the craziest thing to duplicate, but then again, what if we want to change short answer and rename that to be something else? So I propose that we should pull that stuff out. Yeah, let's pull out some helper functions at least. We'll do that. Trying to build it into something complicated here instead of starting immediately with it, but either way, helper functions don't go in a components folder. So I'm going to call it models. I don't think it's too premature to call it models. Right, a model in this case, it's just how we're modeling our data. So we've got, I'm going to call it question, even if right now I'm not going to write a class right away. We'll get to that. Preview, preview. So has options and input type are both questions you can ask about a question, right? So yeah, it makes sense that those should be in something co-located, right? We can just say function, and it can take a question. For now, we can just do that. And we can say function, and it can take a question. All right, so just plain old extraction of a helper function. Of course, we're going to need to export them if we want to be able to use them anywhere else. And now in survey question, we can import them as options and input type. It will automatically, yeah. Webpack will find it'll just look through every single thing it knows how to input and try to find it. Yeah, so it's actually more flexible if it doesn't, because then if you need to change it, you need to change the name later. You don't need to worry about it.
Those are the two function names, but is there a way, like if there were more, to say all or something?
Yeah, we could do, so just to answer your question precisely, yes, we could do star as question. Sure, let's do that. If we do star as question like that, then we can question dot, whatever. Yeah. Now the weird thing about Vue is that we can't actually use these functions in our template unless we register them in the Vue model thing. So this thing. So we could just, I don't know, we could just put it here, in which case we'd have to do question dot, and then pass a thing for each of them, which is a little weird, but I don't know. For now, that seems fine. Question dot has options, and then of course we have to pass local question. It's called local question here, right? Yeah, it's called local question down there. I need this to be smaller so I can actually see. And that's the only one we're doing right here, right?
You're doing the question.
Where? Oh, here. The m.question question is undefined, can't access it, has options property. I thought I did that like this. Is that not possible? Oh, because these need to be functions, don't they? Okay, well so I can't use the shorthand thing, but for now that's
Whoa.
super.
So what did you even just write?
Oh, so computed, I was trying to do a shorthand here,
Right.
right, where that would be question, question,
Mm-hmm.
but because the computed properties need to be functions,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a better place for this. I think there should be.
Yeah.
I don't like this, but I'm also really only temporarily saying like that,
Mm-hmm.
because view requires computed properties to be like the keys of the computed object here need to be functions that it can call to get the value of the computed property.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do that, yeah, so that is the same thing as the shorthand this,
Right.
which is what we have up here for data like that. But we can leave it like that because it's more straightforward. Does that make sense to you, Nathan?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So everything seems to work here now, at least for the, of course I just jumped out of the, the edit mode is not where we're concerned right now. Doesn't look like a big win so far because those are just two helper functions which, weren't going to be so hard to copy and paste, but a little bit of duplication right here to make it clear where there's underlying truth is way cheaper than making the wrong abstraction and copying and pasting stuff all over the place and not naming a concept when we see one. So you got to just trust the process that later on there will be a big win because we've got a thing that we're calling a question and co-locating. But for now, we can also then, with has options down here, basically say the same thing and do question, return question, and import question up here. Again, star as because we from models question. And then up here, I need to say question dot has options local question. Cool. Nice. Feel good to everybody? We pulled out a question fields component. Yay! Now, in our new question form, it's going to be so easy as to just say question fields, bind question to local question, and on change, local question equals event. You just write that in line because it's fine, why not? And then close the tag.
That event is coming up from question fields component.
The question fields component is emitting,
Whatever new question data is.
the emit change function right there emits a change with the local question. So yeah, the $sign event is just shorthand for this first argument to the handler there.
And you're calling that emit change method basically anytime there's something being changed in any of those options, or the text, the type, and the change options.
Yep, pretty much, just like that. Cool, so then just to complete it here in the new question form, we have to remember to import our question fields from question fields, and then register it as a child component. What that is, curly brackets for the name, because we care about the name. And now if we go back to the server builder here and actually comment that out all again, start from a blank form. If we click new question, we don't see anything, and we have console errors.
Yeah, there is an empty local question that you pass in and start in.
Oh, yeah, okay. So we'll do that again. Right, in order to be able to have a save button or a cancel button or whatever, we can't really, actually in this case it's an add button, so we just don't even have one created yet. There's no prop even to change if we wanted to.
Because that's what we were doing before. We can't until we get a new prop, so we have to create a new copy. But
Yeah.
this time there is no new copy that we can now. So
This time there's not even, yeah, this time there's not even a copy. So what is the value, or what's the default value of a local question? Or of a question? What's the default value here? We got get text as an empty string, and type. Yeah, maybe it's options, pick one or something like that, but I'm not confident that I'm remembering that magic string correctly. Geez. And options, like that. Cool.
But then are there actual other options in the type document?
There are those, because again, those are hard-coded
So we
here.
need a default. Why isn't there a default number of options?
Well, the default, I put an empty array. We are probably going to need at some point a plus option button, right, which we don't have right now. But just to prove that it works, we could totally put a empty string right there, refresh the page for default reasons, and just something like so my spidey senses are going off, though, about this default question stuff, right? Because now we've spread out, where do we go? Here, we've spread out like the default contents of a question separately from the values that go all in there. And we've got this stuff, like what is a question, spread out all throughout the code base. And if you've done anything with object orientation before, the fact that we're creating a new question right here, aka instantiating a question object, and the fact that we've got questions we want to be able to ask of a questions object. It's like object, we got data and we got behavior. About the same thing. Let's put it together. So I propose that this should actually say new question, like that. Look good, people? Let's make that work. So the question.js file up here can export a class. Let's export a class question. And then these are actually just predicate methods. Or no, not predicate, but they're, yes, whatever, I don't know. They're just methods. Has options is a method. Input type. If I can use my tools, nope, it's selecting forward. So input type is a method on question. We don't need to pass this in anymore. That's super cool because we can have a this. Yeah, so classes have a constructor, and the constructor can take maybe destructured props from an object, text, type, and options, and that can have a default of, well, something like default.
What does that mean? Are you just doing
Or we gotta define it. Oops. Fortunately, I was premature in cutting instead of copying, because text should be blank, type should be options, pick one, and options should be empty like that. And then if we import question from /models / question, unexpected comma. Obviously you need the body of the constructor, this dot text.
I was gonna say, like, is this some new, like, syntax?
Nope. This dot text equals text, this dot type equals type, and this dot options equals options. Something is going on
Instead
there.
of doing that equals default, we really could just pass in the default object context directly, right?
Like that?
Like without the first part, without the first photographic text part options equals.
We could do that. You mean like this with equals here? Yeah. So we could do that, but it would require that you pass an object. Oh, wait. No, I don't think that's actually possible. No, that doesn't work in JavaScript, does it? I'm pretty sure that's actually a syntax error. It doesn't seem to be giving me a syntax error. Well, then again, it was not working before either. If this is actually like new syntax that I don't know about, I'm going to be kind of amazed. Okay, can't export in a console, but I can do this. Why Ruby? Destructured parameter is undefined. Okay, but if I did this, oh, okay, cool. I didn't actually know that that was possible. So you can provide defaults when you're destructuring an object. And then if we provide a default for the object, we can pass nothing. Right, so if it's that, and of course read explanation of question.
Maybe it was clear the first way you were doing it.
I think it might be, but I like that this is possible. I didn't realize. Oh, that's cool. I think I will pull it out, but we learned something today about defaults and destructuring. Cool. So, I don't know, you could call that whatever you want. Cool. Okay, so now if we, now why was it not, property or method adding question is not defined on the instance for reference frame member. Did I delete more than I was supposed to from? Because adding question is here. So, problems. Oh, okay. So it's just failing to, to compile because of changes that we need to make to other files. Namely that the survey question here where we were doing import star as well. So now the whole thing, we have to propagate this fact that these are actually question objects all throughout. So if we import question from instead of that, and then we don't even need to actually We don't even need to do that because the idea is that these are now methods. So instead of doing question.hasOptions local question, we should be able to do local question.hasOptions. And local question.input type, which should work at least one time. And in the question field, I need to do the same thing. Still saying problems. Type error question2.default is not a constructor. Oh, export default class question. Okay. Tracking this down. Local question has a new question. So then here we should, yes, okay, so we're very immediately having to deal with this. Question fields is copying a local question, remember? And it's doing this. So this is what we did. Right? This spreading guy right there is creating a new object with all the keys of the old object.
So we just need to make a new question with the question from.
Well, so yeah, because this isn't actually a question object when we're spreading like this. We would have to do, you know, new question parentheses. Like we could do it like this. Let's just prove that it works by doing it like this. But I got a better option. Right. that should work. Oops, like this. Well, more problems. Reference error questions not defined. Okay. So if I import question from .go/models /question, cool. All right, so now that works. But the issue is that, like, having to do that all over the time is kind of annoying. And actually, even this whole copying thing is kind of annoying. So we can make a method on the questions object that does this for us. Right? We could just say this dot question dot, I don't know, dupe, something like that, duplicate. You could call that whatever you wanted. I'm pulling that from RubyLand as far as a name is concerned. So dupe would just say, it would just return a new question with all of the stuff from this question spread out, and options being all of the stuff from this options spread out.
Why do you have to do the options rather than?
Because the way that Vue sticks listeners, like observers, inside of all the objects to watch for changes, so arrays are also objects, and arrays are also passed by reference. And if we left a reference to the old options array, then when we spliced it or modified it in any way, that change would propagate sort of all over the place. So we've got to make sure that we're doing a deep copy and not just a copy of a shallow copy only of the keys that we're dealing with here. So yeah, deep copy, that's why we got to do that. Yeah, so then our survey question, well, we can get around to that. We haven't, well, we can make the same change while we're thinking about it. We just, we'll just say this dot question dot dupe, assuming that that's actually a question, and then that's good. And then there's one last little thing we're going to need to do as far as chores for being able to use objects like this, is that these handlers, handle change type and whatever, No, they're not. Cool. That should work just fine. New question. Change to short answer. It disappears. Something. Hey, cool. Nice. Nice. Okay. So now we can go back to the original task, which is adding a save button that puts the question in the list, right? So here's our form. Let's do this like proper accessibility aligned HTML people. I don't know, that was not a sentence, but we'll do type submit because forms should have submit buttons, right? And then forms also should have submit actions. Or then we can listen for the submit action here, allow people to hit enter, all that stuff. So on submit, we will add question. I don't know, good name. Seems like it to me anyway. So we need an add question method, which needs to add the question to the list that's in Survey Builder, but in this component we can't look into Survey. We don't know what Survey Builder is going to do with it. So if we need to pass data up the component tree, we emit. So we'll emit add question with local question. And then we should probably also toggle editing. Or toggle adding, right? So that it goes back to being a new question button and doesn't leave the thing there. So we've got a button that doesn't have any text in it because I didn't write it. Save. Cool. So what's up? Save. Refresh the page. That's what form submissions do, but thankfully we can prevent the default on that. And now it'll just go back to non-toggle editing state, and nothing is listening for this add question event. So we should make something listen for that. Survey Builder, here's a new question form that can listen for add question event. When you're doing your own custom events, you should write them in kebab case like this with hyphens, because view templates are supposed to be valid. They're supposed to be valid HTML. If you did use camel case like that, HTML attributes actually they're not case sensitive, so that would throw away the capital Q, and it could lead to bugs later. So we want to use kebab case for that. So on add question, we're gonna, I don't know, add question. And then we can make a method down here. That could be called handle add question, just for clarity, I don't know, if you want to. Handle add question is going to take a question because that's what we're passing up from the new question form. And then we can say this.questions.push question. Yay! It works.
With a minute to spare.
Yay! Feeling good about that. Super cool.
And it lays a lot of nice groundwork for being able to flesh out a question or functionality-wise in terms of adding actions.
Oh yeah.
Things that we might want to do.
Yeah, and I mean one thing that just comes to mind that I'll leave as an exercise to the viewer at this point is we still do have these magic strings. Options, pick one, options, pick any number, short answer, spread around, at least as lists of options right there. It would be potentially valuable to, bring those into this domain too, and maybe put it as a static constant on question or something, question about types or something like that. But yeah, cool. Yay, everybody who's having a good time. I'm going to hit stop.